Welcome to Mr. Clips. I'm Mr. Hummel.
And I'm Mr. Bueller. And on today's episode, what we are talking about is the first 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, a section called the Bill of Rights.
Now, the Bill of Rights had two parts and goals towards it. And the first goal was to ensure that a new government would not do the same things that England had done to the colonists before the Revolutionary War.
My lord, is that legal?
I will make it legal.
And two, calm the fears of less populated, smaller states that are kind of nervous and weary about giving up some of their state power to a national central government.
Give me liberty or give me death, but only the kind of liberty you find in a controlled, well-regulated society.
The First Amendment has 5 parts. Part 1, freedom of religion.
So if you want to do something foolish like worship Star Trek, you can.
By the 23rd century, Star Trek fandom had evolved from a loose association of nerds with skin problems into a full-blown religion.
And Scotty beamed them to the Klingon ship, where they would be no tribble at all.
All power to the engines.
The second part to the First Amendment is freedom of speech.
So if someone annoys you, just be like Ben Franklin and tell them to go fly a kite.
Ben Franklin didn't say that, did he?
No.
Oppression of our intellectual movement so no one says anything anymore in case somebody else gets offended. What happens if you say that and someone gets offended? Well, they can be offended. What's wrong with being offended? When did sticks and stones may break my bones stop being relevant?
Part 3 is the right to assemble peaceably.
People, settle down.
Part 4 is you have the right to petition government or tell them issues you have with what they're doing.
Krusty Krab is unfair! Mr. Krabs is in there! Standing at the concession! Plotting his oppression!
What the heck does that mean?
I don't know. Squidward told me to yell it at people.
And the last goes along with speech. It's the freedom of press.
The government cannot dictate to the newspaper or newsmen what they're going to report.
I stand behind my decision. This press conference is over. I can't see you now. I can't hear you now. You're not here now. La 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 la.
The Second Amendment guarantees the people the right of firearm ownership.
Marge, get my gun.
And this was a right guaranteed to the common people because our own founding fathers knew that the common man had a right to defend his own property and also to defend himself from tyrannical governments or invading forces.
I won't be needing these anymore.
Foolish humans. Oh, yes, Kodos. Earth is now ripe for the plucking. People of Earth, we come to you in the spirit of hostility and menace.
Now, let's be reasonable. We can resolve our differences peacefully. Ow.
Your superior intellect is no match for our puny weapons.
Gordon, you've got to do something.
What do you want me to do? I'm a baker now.
And conquered us with a club. Wish we'd saved an A-bomb or two.
The Third Amendment guarantees that people do not have to put soldiers up in their homes unless you're at war.
So what that means is the soldiers have to either have their housing provided for by the government or they have to find their own housing.
Squidward is not a freeloader, and he would never take advantage of me.
3 weeks later.
He's just having a hard time getting his confidence back.
Many months later.
I'm sure he's close to a breakthrough.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting, and they had to hire a new one.
I know he still isn't looking for work. Don't rub it in.
The Fourth Amendment protects one's property, papers, and effects, which is personal property, personal belongings, from an unreasonable search and seizure by government officials.
In other words, someone can't just come into your home and try and find some dirt on you without a warrant.
I told you they were monitoring my activities.
He's right. This thing's got info on everybody. Addresses, credit ratings, what size baseball hat they wear.
Surveillance beam disabled. Young Bart here was right. We are spying on you pretty much around the clock.
The lie, Mr. McGuire.
Do you want to know the terrifying truth? Or do you want to see me sock a few dingers? Dingers! Dingers! Yoink.
Amendments 5 through Amendments 8 are amendments that are related to court issues. What happens when you get arrested or you're accused of a crime? What are your rights then?
That's the man who smashed my mailbox, officer!
Mr. Squarepants, I'm afraid you're under arrest.
But Mr. Krabs, I didn't do anything. I was framed. It wasn't me.
Amendment 5 and Amendment 6 are going to go hand in hand because they both have a lot of references to trials. First part is, if you're accused of a capital offense, a felony, you must be indicted by a grand jury. And also, you cannot be forced to be a witness against yourself. You cannot be forced to admit guilt.
And Amendment 6 deals with fair and speedy trials. Now, speedy trial is important because they don't want to be able to lock you up until you decide to give up in a trial. So they said, no, it's unfair not to have a speedy trial.
You can also have a lawyer and witnesses to help defend yourself and prove your innocence.
The suspect is considered dangerous, and Elkerton Police Chief Marion Wilson is assembling a task force of the city's finest officers.
Ladies and gentlemen, the suspect is not human. He is at home in the bush. Shoot to kill.
Hey! I got another question. Hey, doesn't this guy deserve a fair trial?
You, back of the mob.
Back of the mob? What? This is my spot. I came early.
Okay, out of the mob.
Amendment 7 guarantees the right of a jury trial in civil cases over $20. However, in today's society, they've upped that number to either $200 or $500, depending on the state.
And what this means is, if you need to sue someone to get money from them, you do have a right to a jury trial if it's a huge amount of money.
Ow, pointy! You slimy. Uh-oh, moving. Uh-huh.
Oh, $20. I wanted a peanut.
$20 can buy many peanuts.
Explain how.
Money can be exchanged for goods and services.
Woohoo!
Now, Amendment 8 prohibits cruel and unusual punishment. So if you get the death penalty, don't expect it to be killed by being eaten by a pack of ravenous sharks. It also prohibits excessive fines. So if you do a speeding ticket, don't expect to be paying a few $1 million for that. Now, it does not prohibit fines or the death penalty.
Earth Rick C-137, the Council of Rick sentences you to the machine of unspeakable doom, which swaps your conscious and unconscious minds, rendering your fantasies pointless while everything you've known becomes impossible to grasp. Also, every 10 seconds it stabs your
crotch. Now, Amendments 9 and 10 go together, and this explicitly states that if a certain right or power is not given directly to the federal government, that it becomes the right of the people or the states.
Show me where in the rulebook it says that a human can't be a robot.
Right here, Rule 1.
Well then, join us next week for more inconclusive action on Robot Rumble.